Okay, my goal for today is to show you how to save a ton of time. If you take a look at this picture of this tree, if you wanted to take this tree out of this picture and copy and paste it into another photograph, obviously that would be a lot of work the way I showed you before. You couldn't just do the quick select tool because you've got the white clouds in the background and things like that. So you'd have to go around like each little leaf with the brush tool and all that other stuff, which of course is just way too much. And honestly, I used to make my students do that because I hadn't figured out a way around it until I was watching a DVD, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like the making of a certain movie, and I had this like moment of clarity, and then I realized I bet you other people are doing that all the time. And I actually haven't searched for it, but I bet you people will do this. This is another one that's really difficult. Fire or water, either one, really difficult. And the reason why they're so difficult is because the areas that are in between, because fire is kind of sort of transparent, translucent, it's see-through, So in order to do a selection on fire like this, it's actually pretty difficult to do it by hand. I'm going to show you how to be able to pull a selection on one of these, basically, do a layer mask on one of these within 60 seconds. You'll have it done. And you can tweak it a little bit, of course, to fit your needs, but basically it's going to be done. So anyway, so we've got these two images. I've also got a third image here that we're going to drop these into just so you can see that it works. So we've got this photograph of these clouds and stuff, and we're going to set the grass on fire, okay? And we're going to put a tree in the background. So the first thing I'm going to do before you do anything else is you want to drop these into your picture. So you're going to drop them into the background, and I'll do that with the tree too. Let's just drop them both in right now, and then I'll just turn the tree off while I do the fire first. Okay, so let me close these now. We don't need them anymore, and I'm going to turn the tree off. So now we've got our fire, and again, this would be really difficult to just do with the selection tool. I mean, it's got a solid colored background, right? So doing the outside edges, not so hard, okay? But the problem is you can see what it just did right there, is you can see how it missed pieces of this. And I can go back and get it back and stuff, but some of these finer edges, you can see there's like these little fine wisps of flame that I don't want to get rid of. I want them still there. But they also need to be really subtle. They can't be full opaqueness. You've got to be able to see through them. So here's how it works. It's actually really easy. We're going to take this layer and we're going to duplicate it. So now we've got two. I'm going to turn the bottom one off for just a little bit so you can see what's going on without that being in the way. Now what we're going to do is make sure we've selected this particular layer. Okay, that is our duplicate. And we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Black and White. Now what I can do is I'm going to take this and make it into a black and white copy. And you can play with it a lot because you've got this black and white panel here, and you can really play with how it looks a lot. You can make the reds really bright, okay, the yellows a little brighter. And as I look at it, that's probably what I want to do is I don't want to make my reds too bright. But if you go back, let's hit cancel for a second. If you go back and you look at where the areas are of this that you want to be most opaque, okay, the reddish areas are where, and the orangish areas, that's where it's kind of see-through. Your yellow areas, okay, your bright yellow areas, those are the ones that you want to be really opaque. So this makes a lot of sense. So let's go back. Image, Adjustments, Black and White. And I'm going to pump the yellows up just a little bit, not too much, because I don't want to lose the definition that's in here in some of these like more specific areas. Like I don't want to lose the definition that's right there. That's a great section, and if I pump the yellow up too much, you can see I'm going to lose a lot of that. Not to mention that if I put the yellow up too much now, some of these areas that I want to be somewhat transparent, they're all going to be pure white now. And remember, with a mask, when you're dealing with layer masks, black is what? Transparent. So anything that's black is transparent. Anything that's pure white is opaque, right? And those middle grays will be semi-transparent depending upon how dark the gray is, will translate to a percentage of transparency. So I don't want to go too far. The other thing is you can tweak it a little bit later on too, so it's better to kind of back off a little bit, and then I'll show you how you can increase the whites or the blacks or whatever if it doesn't quite work out very well first. So this is pretty good. You'll see with the tree we're going to do more tweaks. So I'm going to click OK. Now, pretty easy so far. I just moved to full screen mode here. I'm going to go select all. Now you can see it puts a selection around the entire layer. I'm going to say edit and copy. Now, here comes an important part. So I've copied this. Now I'm going to turn this layer off because it doesn't matter anymore, and I can even get rid of the selection by going deselect. We're going to go back to our bottom layer, which is the color layer, and we're going to go down here. We're going to add ourselves a layer mask like you guys are used to. But now we're going to do a special little trick. Hold the Option key down and click into the layer mask. Now that gets rid of everything else. It doesn't mean that everything else is gone. It just means now we're only seeing the mask. Okay? Now we're going to edit and paste our grayscale version of the fire in there. But here's a really important thing. They have to match exactly. If you move them ever so slightly, or if they're off-centered ever so slightly, they mess up. It messes everything up. Let me show you. So I'm just going to hit paste. And then if I click out of this, you'll notice they're not in line. The reason for this is Photoshop, when you just go edit paste, it pastes whatever you copied right in the middle. Okay, so if I back out of this, you'll see, actually it's not even perfectly centered. I'm not quite sure why, but anyway, it doesn't paste it in the right place. So I'm going to hit undo, click back into this, and this time I'm going to hit paste special, paste in place. You see that? Now what it's going to do is it's actually going to put it right in the same place. I cannot stress enough how this is important to do this, because if they are off, even by a little bit, it's going to mess things up. So now if I click back into here, you can see right now, voila, the fire looks pretty darn good the way it is because of the way I just used the image itself to create my mask. It's a very simple technique. Now obviously, we don't want that reflection in the bottom, right? Okay? But now that we have the mask started, we can go through and we can alter it. We can fine-tune it any way we want. So all I need to do really to get rid of this reflection is what? Paint it black, exactly. So I'm just going to grab my paintbrush here, make sure that I have a 100% hardness on the edge. I'm just going to go in here and click, and then I'll hold the Shift key down, which helps me stay straight. Go over it a couple times here. There we go. Do another one. Let's back off a little bit. It's a little easier. Yay. Okay. So now I've done that, and we can go click back out of this. And there you go. Now we don't need our grayscale version anymore, so we can trash that. Let's move this around here. Now, one of the other problems, we can just put it here, is if you notice up at the top here, we have this little piece of flame that's actually kind of cut off. So the other nice thing about things like fire and stuff like that is we can actually selectively say, you know what, we don't want that there. You just take a look at the way these are built here and the way the tips of the flames go. I'm sure we can manufacture that. So again, I'm going to click on my mask. This time I'm not going to option click on it. Get a smaller brush, and this time I'm going to have a softer edge, and I'm going to go and lower opacity here, probably about 30%. And then just very carefully, I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint my mask. And I'm going to restructure this flame just by making it transparent. I'm just going to restructure it like the tip of a regular flame. and make it look like it's just fading out. See? Just like that. I can do that. Now, let's say that there are parts of this that I want to be a little bit more see-through or less see-through or whatever. So if I zoom in here, you know, some of these edges aren't quite as translucent as I'd like. That's actually pretty easy. Again, I like to option click in here and take a look. See, this is all pretty white up here. So I want to make that a little darker. I just go to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to go to, I like the curves. You can use levels as well. Curves are cool, and it gives you basically a graph of the black and white image. And all I need to do is just make it a little darker, not in the black parts, but more in the down low parts. So I'm just going to grab this and make those a little darker. And as I make them a little darker, notice, and this is why I like the curves, my highlight areas stay pretty bright. Okay, right up here. And my pure blacks stay pure black. I'm just influencing the midtones a little bit. And so what that's going to translate to is a little bit more transparency in some of these areas to make it look a little bit more realistic. Click OK. And if I go undo curves or then redo curves, you can kind of see the result. And the result is I can see through this a lot more. Now maybe it's a little too much, and so I go edit, I'll undo it, and then I'll go back and redo the curves a little bit less than I did before. That sort of thing. But you can play with it. That's what's really cool. And if you really screw up, you know what? Trash the whole layer mask, right? Just trash it. You go back to normal and you just reduplicate it and start all over again. Now if I wasn't explaining all this stuff, I could have done this in like 60 seconds or less. It's really not that hard. So now, let's move on to the tree, because the tree's a little different. So let's add our tree on here. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit first. I generally recommend that you do not, whoops, I'm on the wrong layer. I generally recommend that you do not scale the images down first, that you do what you need to do with them before you scale them down. But it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to scale this down to about here. That just gives me a little bit. I can see everything. Make sure that I get everything too. That helps. Same basic procedure. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to duplicate. I get a second layer. I'm going to go Image Adjustments, and I'm going to go black and white. But here we're going to really play with this black and white thing. And here's why. You take a look at this. We've got an interesting problem. Right now the sky is pretty dark. The tree is also very dark. The white clouds, however, are white. So I could try to make the tree lighter, okay, by pushing up my greens, okay? But notice it doesn't do all that much. The tree trunk's still going to stay dark. Plus I've got white clouds in the background. So what I really need to do, well, what do you think I need to do? Make my blues darker? So if I do make my blues darker, something else darker. Well, that's helpful. No, the opposite. We're going to go the opposite direction here. We're going to make the blues really bright.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
That's what you meant. Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say. So we're going to take our blues and we're going to make them really, really bright. What that does is that, again, now we have that contrast that we can use. Now, if you take a look in the middle here, we've got some problems, though, because a lot of these branches and stuff have really bright highlights. Sometimes you might not be able to get rid of them all. But in this case, through some messing around with this a little bit earlier this morning, I was actually able to do it. So if I take my reds and I bring them down a little bit, that helps a little bit. Take my yellows. Oh, look at that. Oh, that helps a lot. See, when I bring my yellows down, bring my greens down. Okay? So I'm just bringing all these colors down. Now, see, if I bring the cyan down, then the sky goes too light. So we're going to keep the cyan the same. Blues we know we need up there. How about magentas? Magentas really don't do much at all. Okay? But you can see I've got a pretty good mask started here, don't I? I might have to go in and fix a couple of these things. But generally speaking, you know what? You probably aren't even going to see them, especially if the tree is going to be, say, further off in the background or something like that. Probably won't need to worry about it. But if I do, this is still a heck of a lot easier than trying to go through and create a mask around every single stinking leaf that's in there. And again, I can do this in 60 to 90 seconds if I weren't yapping like I am right now. So anyway, I'm just going to go here, and we've got all this. I'm going to click OK. I've got my black and white image. So what's my next step? Copy it, exactly. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to select all. And I'm going to, I always like to verify that it's selected. Yep. Edit, copy. Now I'm going to turn this off so we can see what we're doing. Click on the image, create a mask. Option click into the image. If you don't do that, by the way, it just pastes it right into the layer on top of the image. Oops. So we got to make sure we do that. And then paste special, because I want to make sure it goes in the right place. There we go. Now, something bad is about to happen. Has anybody figured out what bad thing is going to happen here? Thank you. The tree is going to be gone. Why? Because it's black, exactly. So now we've got a beautiful sky sitting in the middle of our mountains. It's not what we wanted. What's my fix? It's actually really easy. I have to inverse the colors, exactly. So I'm going to select none, deselect. Go back in here. There's actually a really easy way to do this. Under the image menu, adjustments, invert. You can invert the colors just like that. Yeah, pretty simple. Now, you'll notice I still have some cleanup to do. Some of the background is a little grayish, okay, and stuff like that. Plus I've got extra stuff down here like the grass and whatnot I probably don't want. So if I click out of this, you know, if I look really carefully, you can see the edge of the photograph right there. I need to do some cleanup here. So I'm just going to, again, I make sure my layer mask is selected. I'm going to make my opacity all the way, and I'm going to get a 100% hardness on the brush and just control my brush settings, and I'm just going to go in here and do this. Or I can do that curves trick again. So I go back here, and I look at this, and I just look, it's just a couple of these big clouds that were over here. So I'm going to go back to my curves. Let me show you something you can do with the curves. It's pretty cool. You'll notice these little testers down here. See that? Black, mediums, and highlights. What I can do is I can set where I want my blacks to be. So I'm going to click my black tester here. And then I'm just going to click right on the cloud. And it sets that as my black. And you can see how the curve moved over to the right here, and it got rid of all that extra stuff. Now this is all black. Voila, done. One click. I can also, you know, maybe make it even a little bit more dark, or maybe push it back up a little bit in the middle so that they're back where I wanted them to be, you know. The other thing that I probably want to do is just take a black paintbrush, excuse me, and get rid of the grass. So, and maybe probably these other trees here, I don't really need them. So I'm just going to go in here and start painting on my selection. Oh, I didn't check. My black is not pure black. It's kind of a grayish color. See the difference there? So when I'm painting now, look, it's kind of going semi-transparent here. So you always got to make sure you've got full black when you start painting your selections or your layer masks. Okay, so here we go. I can go in there. And you know what? If I catch a couple of tree branches or leaves from their main tree, probably not going to notice unless you take a huge chunk out of there without, you know, really thinking or paying attention to it. So once I get rid of all this stuff, now I have the freedom to kind of do what I want with this tree, place it wherever I want, you know. So again, I can just move it around. I can put it back up here. I can flip it, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Yeah, I think that looks compositionally, that looks a lot better. And put it down here maybe, so close enough. And now I need to take a look, and you can see if you look real close up here, see these lines around the edges, okay? Those I need to clean up. Those I need to go in and clean up. And with that, I would just take a black brush on my layer mask, nice and small, but with a soft edge and probably, I don't know, 50-60% opacity, and you can just clean those up in a couple clicks real easily. Okay? And those little outlines around an object, those are your biggest telltale marks that something has been selected and copied and pasted into another photograph. Those are like your biggest things. If this is getting really difficult, you know what I might honestly do? I might just trash this whole thing here, get rid of this whole bush that's behind the tree, and just have the tree standing by itself. You know, why not? It's a lot easier that way. I still have some problems up here. You can see up here I've got some stuff. And again, I probably just erase them. I just probably erase them completely and pretend like they weren't even there. You know, and just the tree's still going to look good without them, and I'm not too worried about it. Okay? And you can see same thing up in here. So you still have some cleanup that you have to do sometimes, but at the same time, it's going to save you so much time and so much work when you use the image itself to create the mask. It's really simple when you think about it. This is also very helpful with water, because water is a lot like fire. There are places in water that are semi-transparent, and there's other places where it's completely opaque and you don't want to see through it. And one of those places is obviously where the highlights are in water. Wherever there's a highlight in water, you can't see through the water. Well, that highlight is naturally white. So if you take a photograph of water and you create a grayscale copy and copy and paste it into your layer mask, you're going to have at least a really good start on being able to see through the water a little bit, and then you can play with your curves a little bit and make it less or more see-through, that sort of thing, if that makes any sense. Okay? So this is going to save you a ton of time, especially with complicated objects like trees, fire, water, that sort of thing. Okay? Any questions? All righty then.